Far left is Recording Secretary Cindy Benson, Superintendent Larry Francois, Board members Amy Cast, Sandy Hayes, Don McCravey, and Kimberly D'Angelo. I'm Janet Quinn and I currently serve as President of the Board. Agendas for this meeting as well as minutes for previous meeting are available on the table at the back. And if you are here to address the Board on agenda items, please sign in on the clipboard that's on the table with the agendas, and you'll have an opportunity near the beginning of the meeting for your comments. First order of the business tonight is the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I want to begin tonight by recognizing and thanking our many community partners who participated in the Back to School Fair hosted at Maywood Hills on August 12th. Estimates are that this was the largest turnout of families for any of our Back to School fairs, and it was encouraging to see families from a wider range of schools across our district attending. I also want to give sincere thanks and appreciation to the 2,200 plus volunteers from our local churches and communities who participated in Community Serve Day this past Sunday, providing a range of assistance and beautification project at 17 district schools. Those 2,200 volunteers represent almost 9,000 hours of service at our schools. And this is a wonderful and growing annual tradition that's deeply appreciated by the staff, the students, and the families at our schools. Karen gave me some statistics. So Community Serve Day began in the fall of 2008. North Shore Baptist Church, now North Shore Community Church, worked on outdoor projects at Woodmore and North Shore Junior High. In the following year, East Side Foursquare Church and Overlake Church joined in the efforts. And now we're at, I believe, 6 churches altogether. Is that right, Karen?
There's
4 main churches and 2,200 folks participating. It's just great. We're so fortunate to have such a strong partnership with our faith-based communities. On August 12th and 13th, we concluded our 2015 August Advance with the continued work around cultural competency with our instructional leaders on Wednesday morning, and then continued professional learning community work on Wednesday afternoon and Thursday. On Thursday, our school shared decision-making leadership teams were able to join us, and each building had a significant amount of time to work throughout the day on a problem of practice unique to their building, and they were utilizing the recently released Smarter Balance assessment data within that work. It seems that buildings really utilized the time together well and seem to be getting a great start on the work of their buildings for the upcoming year. Later in the day on the 13th, I attended and participated in the 2015 Wall of Honor induction ceremony. President Quinn and Vice President Cast and Director Hayes were there. We inducted another stellar class of 10 former NSD graduates, employees, and community volunteers, and that brings to 72 the number of inductees on the Wall of Honor over the past 6 years. And I just continue to be humbled and amazed by the stories of the inductees and all they have contributed in their personal and professional lives for the betterment of others. On August 14th, we had our audit exit conference for all our alternative learning experience programs, and Directors McCravey and Hayes were able to participate in that as well. I'm happy to report that it was a clean audit, which verified that we were following all of the applicable rules and procedures for ALE programs. And as you may know, ALE programs have changed and become more stringent in recent years due to heightened legislative concern about the quality and accountability of those programs. Appreciate the work that has gone on with Deputy Superintendent Carolyn O'Keefe, Heather Miller, Donna Tayo, and our business services team to make sure that we are properly adhering to all those new rules and procedures. On August 14th, later in the day, Carolyn, Shannon, Kelly, Ray, and I met with a small group of community stakeholders for a preliminary discussion around a potential community convening around equity and diversity topics. This meeting was a preliminary discussion of this action item on the Equity and Diversity Action Plan approved by the Board in late June. We had a very productive discussion around what such a convening may encompass and the possible outcomes and requests of participants. And Shannon actually has finished reviewing the updated draft of a possible convening framework, and we're trying to schedule another meeting of this small team sometime in the early to mid-September for a follow-up discussion. We're moving that forward. On August 17th, I had the opportunity to greet and welcome 112 new teachers at our new professional academy. They were filling up in the entire boardroom that morning. It's definitely a sign that we are both growing as a school district as well as experiencing a changing demographic of our teaching force, as experienced teachers are retiring and newer teachers are joining our ranks. There was just a ton of energy and enthusiasm present in the room, and I hope that those levels are sustained by our newest teachers throughout the upcoming year. We had our elementary and secondary summer institutes last week, August 17th through 21st at Bellevue High School and Woodville High School respectively. Dozens of our teachers participated in a wide range of professional development opportunities. I provided a lunchtime keynote address to secondary staff on Monday, August 17th, and had a fair number who opted to sit inside and listen to me rather than enjoy their lunch outside in the sunshine. And then I had a similar presentation at a pre-lunch session with elementary staff on August 18th. I want to again thank Nancy Young, Gretchen Schaefer, our TOSA's principals, assistant superintendents, and many others for putting together such a powerful week of learning and professional development opportunities to launch the upcoming year. On the 19th, Wednesday of last week, I toured North Creek High School with our new planning principal, Eric McDowell. Construction is moving along rapidly, and I can assure you that North Creek will be an absolutely beautiful school that will reflect the visioning process, which emphasized 21st century skills, technology, collaboration, and sustainability in the design process, and definitely see those elements in the school as it's being constructed. Late September or early October will be a great window to arrange a board visit of the construction progress. There'll be a good amount of work that'll be accomplished by then that should really help give you an idea of what the building is going to look like when completed. So we'll work on something along those lines. And as you know from your briefing last Friday, North Creek High School was recently featured in an article in the Eastside Business Journal discussing the connection between the visioning process that we engaged in and the actual design elements of the school. On August 19th, later in the day, I attended the Greater Woodinville Chamber of Commerce board meeting, completing my final meeting as chair of that organization. I will be continuing on the board beginning another 3-year term, but have relinquished the chair role to Lori Cook, owner of Wordsmith Diva, who has served as vice chair this year. And I received a wonderful engraved, personalized gavel that I left in my office as a recognition for my service in the board chair this past year. It's not my job to utilize the gavel at these meetings. And as you know, next Wednesday, September 2nd, marks the beginning of the 2015-16 school year. So ready or not, 21,000 students will be starting the new school year that morning, and we will be ready. I know staff across the district have been working hard over the summer and particularly over the past several weeks to create a successful and positive start to the school year. I plan to begin that morning at Frank Left Elementary to help with 300 plus kindergarten students who will be there.
Thank you, Larry. So the next item on the agenda is association and public comments. The North Shore School District Board of Directors has set aside a period of up to 60 minutes to receive updates and comments from association leaders and citizens from our community. The board expects speakers to address matters related to district operations, policies, procedures, and agenda items under consideration by the board. Comments should not make reference to any employee or representative from the district by name. If interested, there is a complaint process available through the Office of the Superintendent. Please note that because of the public governance process, the board may ask clarifying questions regarding topics not on this evening's agenda, but will likely defer discussion to a future meeting if warranted, in order for staff to prepare any necessary background information for board members to review, and for the discussion item to be included on a published agenda for the benefit of other parties who may be interested. Alternatively, a district employee or board member may respond to individuals offering public comment at a later date if warranted. When addressing the board, please state your name clearly for our records. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and there is a timer that will sound when your time has expired. We thank you very much for your participation in the process, and we'll start with the association leaders.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Chamberlain. I'm the treasurer of North Shore PTSA Council, and I will be delivering the council report tonight on behalf of President Sherry Rudolph, who sends her regrets for missing tonight's meeting. The North Shore PTSA Council Board's focus this month has been on training and communicating with the local PTA presidents and leaders in the North Shore community. Every PTA, unlike other school support organizations, is a registered 501c3 or C4 nonprofit corporation. As such, we are governed by federal and Washington state laws regulating nonprofit corporations. The IRS and Washington state, as well as our own insurance company, can exact penalties for failure to follow nonprofit business rules and deadlines. We are therefore taking great care to train North Shore PTA leaders to follow the laws and stay true to their original missions and goals. In fact, many leaders of local PTAs and council attended PTA in the Law and other trainings last Thursday. Our board is currently exploring ways to foster cooperation between local PTA leaders and administrators at each school. The financial climate has fortunately changed, and as we transition from tight times to a little wider times, we are encouraging presidents to contact council with questions about budget requests that are not in line with PTA goals and missions. Canyon Creek Elementary PTA has the following on their website, and we think it's a great reminder of what each school's PTA is all about. The PTA's mission, which is the overall purpose of PTA, is to be a powerful voice for children, all children, a relevant resource for families and communities, and a strong advocate for the education and well-being of every child in the public schools of this nation. As the largest volunteer child advocacy association in the country, PTA reminds our country of its obligations to children and provides parents and families with a powerful voice to speak on behalf of every child, while providing the best tools for parents to help their children to be successful students. The council board has been called upon to give counsel to local PTA presidents about building requests for office supplies and water portables at more than one school already this year. President Rudolph and Assistant Superintendent Poole have proposed a possible roundtable discussion, and council board member Carrie McKenzie has proposed a survey to both PTA presidents and principals to identify misunderstandings about nonprofit business requirements and appropriate building requests that benefit students in our district. Our board will be meeting within the next 2 weeks to discuss these and many more possibilities to make sure that PTA school district collaboration here in North Shore is the best possible. Thank you for your service, and we look forward to a productive year supporting the students of North Shore.
Thank you, Nancy. I don't see any other associations present. No? All right, first on the citizen public comments is Timothy Knapp.
Thank you. Take some documents here. I would like to present.
I missed your last name.
Timothy Knapp.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Hello, my name is Timothy Knapp. I have 2 girls at Kokanee Elementary. Olivia is in the 5th grade, Alina is in the 1st. Unless we relocate to a different district, we're likely to be with North Shore for the next 12 years, which means I care about and have a vested interest in the health and welfare of this district. I've placed in front of you 4 pieces of documentation: policy number 5240P, policy 4000, the RCW 28A.405.100 as it relates to the evaluation of a school principal, and the rubrics, which are used as a means of assessment for this evaluation. I'm here to ask you to take another look at your policy 5240P and to request that you amend it to include some sort of objective tool to help facilitate this evaluation. You might be asking yourself why. Well, for the last 3 years, significant damage has taken place with the community at Kokanee Elementary. In an attempt to address this, parents have pleaded for the attention of district leadership to hear us out.
Timothy? Let me have you pause for a moment.
Sure.
Cindy, can you? So, just to reiterate, we can't let you identify any employee by name. And
Thank you. I crossed it off on mine, but I didn't get the chance to cross it off on yours. I made an
yeah, so I'm just
adjustment.
gonna ask you to be really careful because obviously they're,
Sensitive.
yeah,
Yes.
and, yeah.
My apology. When I heard the introduction, I went ahead and did that in mine. I didn't have a chance to do it to each of yours. Where was I? So it took us this long to finally get a meeting with district leadership, with deputy superintendent and assistant superintendent. They met with us in May after initially rejecting our request to meet, even though they were reluctant to do so. So much for policy 4000, which you'll reference in the paragraph, second paragraph, where it says, board members and staff shall strive to develop cooperative school, district, family, community relations, and to achieve mutual understanding and respect. After providing them with 65 pages of stories from parents citing the emotional anguish and damaged relationships that have occurred over the last 3 years because of the poor leadership from the principal, they confessed to us in a follow-up meeting weeks ago that they had no idea that we were at such a breaking point. No idea. How can you be out of touch with your community? So we inquired about the principal's relationship with the community and how it was evaluated, only to discover that it was based on managed information that the principal provides to the assistant superintendent, who then uses the rubrics to implement the assessment. There is no objective resource tool used to get feedback from the community. No wonder they had no idea. Please review your policy and consider including a provision for an objective tool to help provide the district with a balanced perspective on how principals are relating with the community. Lastly, it seems to me that the district may be in violation of state law as it relates to this RCW criteria number 7, because the community is not limited to parents of the school, but to all taxpayers that are within the boundaries of that school. I wonder, has the district reached out to the taxpayers annually to get feedback regarding this evaluation? Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy.
I have a question. Just to explain to me, is the rubric the existing rubric? Is this the
Yes, that's the
existing
rubric.
rubric that you've included?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I did let you continue because I interrupted you, but I'm going to ask the rest of the speakers to please adhere to the 3-minute time limit. And next we have Joel Swenson.
Good evening, my name is Joel Swenson, and I have 2 children at Kokanee, Troy, who's going into the 5th grade, and Megan, who's going into the 3rd grade this year. My son and my daughter both have great teachers at Kokanee. My son, however, I think has had the greatest blessing through some of the teachers who really taught a very great sense of discipline and accomplishment and personal responsibility. What brings me here tonight is a concern that as I've gotten to know more seasoned parents who have been around Kokanee much longer than I hear more stories of seasoned teachers, not teachers who were there for a few years and then moved on to the next job, but seasoned teachers, teachers who have their roots in Kokanee, teachers who have been there for 10, 15, 25 plus years, leaving the school in the last 3 years. Now I understand that there's turnover in any organization, any group. That's understandable. But as I began to compare notes with other parents who had been around longer than I, I come to find out that there are over 20 teachers in the last 3 years under the current administration that have left. When I couple this with the interactions that I've had when it comes to Halloween and Valentine parties either being canceled or done away with, traditions that apparently have been around much longer than my children have been there. And then when I couple that with other parents' experiences, I'm concerned. And I'm concerned because it appears to me that there is an issue outside of teachers just simply moving on, but actually that there's a climate within Kokanee that has changed dramatically within the last 3 years. And so I point this out because, and to reiterate Mr. Knapp's points earlier, not only do I think these issues should be looked into by disinterested and unrelated parties, personnel that are not part of the administration, but to reiterate his point, I believe that the parents, myself included, need to be included in how the administration is connecting with the community and providing a constructive learning environment, which includes the environment that they create for their teachers. Our responsibility is to our children, and I'm here tonight to support my children to create an environment that I'm proud of and that keeps the best teachers at Kokanee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joel.
I have another question, I'm sorry, I missed it. How many teachers have left in the last 3 years?
By my count, over 20.
Or 20? Do you or staff know the staff count at Kokanee? How many staff, how many teachers?
Five per grade, so you're talking 35 teachers.
About 35.
35 teachers, so 20% turnover a year.
That's actually not accurate. Just looking at an email message I have here. So there have been 16 staff total between 2013 and 2014. That's compared to 8 between 2012 and 2012, 13, 2013, 14. So 8 were paras or school assistants, the other 8 were teachers. Among those 8, Dana Whitehead is now principal in the district, and there were 2 retirements. One teacher moved to Bellingham, and 2 of the teachers were kindergarten teachers who moved over to Maywood Hills with the kindergarten classes that transitioned from Kokanee to Maywood Hills. So I think there's a little, I can certainly verify these, but this is just some information that I was able to put my fingers on right now. So
Does that include 2014, 2015? I mean, that's only 2 years you're talking about.
yes,
So,
yes.
so you mentioned
Said 13, 14.
two school years, not
Yeah,
3 years.
Yeah, let me read this more carefully. So between the 13, 14, 14, 15 years, there were 16 staff transitions. Again, 8 of those were paras or school assistants. The other 8 were teachers. Among those, 1 was a principal position, 2 were retirements, 1 moved to Bellingham, and 2 were related to classroom teacher moves. 1 went to a different school for a part-time library position. I don't have any stats for 14, 15 to 15, 16.
So I feel like we're moving into a discussion right now,
Yeah.
and I'd like to see the information that you're
Yeah,
sharing,
I
and
appreciate that.
so that we can all be on board with.
Yep.
And then maybe
Makes
we
good
can get the
sense.
2014, 2015
Right.
information
Right.
at that same
Thank you,
time.
Joel. Tina Whitman, I'm sorry. Are you sure? Mark Valiant.
Good evening to the North Shore School District Board of Directors. My name is Mark Ballier, and I'm the father of 2 North Shore School District students, a son in grade 5 at Kokanee Elementary and a daughter in grade 9 at Leota Junior High. I come before you today to represent a group of community members that is very concerned about the question of policy and procedure happening in the North Shore School District, and specifically at Kokanee Elementary. I'm including a printout handed to you just now from the North Shore School District website. This is policy number 5240P, the administrative procedure for staff or for evaluation of staff. This includes the 8 criteria that are included in staff evaluations. On May 29th of this school year, or of last school year, a group of concerned parents met with 2 assistant superintendents to discuss the principal evaluation process and the inclusion of a 65-page dossier of troubling, factual, and accountable experiences over the course of 3 years in Kokanee's principal evaluation, and to request a follow-up meeting in July or August, as there were questions asked during the meeting that the assistant superintendents needed to circle back with the group on, and we understood that. On August 4th of this year, the same group of concerned parents met with the assistant superintendents to discuss the evaluation process further. We were met with surprise, as the assistant superintendent seemed taken aback at how or why we could be so concerned, even though the experiences detailed in the dossier pointed to an elementary community that was close to a breaking point in patience and understanding. According to this second meeting, it is the principal who compiles the community input for his or her evaluation and then submits to the district for subjective evaluation. Circling back to the policy number 5240P, under the section Evaluation of Certified Principals and Assistant Principals, criteria number 8 is the policy procedure that requests this information from the principal. We believe that the current procedure is inherently flawed and will produce biased results. We would ask that the North Shore School Board make, as a matter of policy for procedure, a principal evaluation process that includes a measurable community input tool or standard that goes directly into the North Shore School District evaluators, in addition to the efforts being collected and funneled by the principal. We support the creation of a task force to accomplish this, and our hope is that it's done in time for the next round of evaluations this coming June of 2016. I thank you all so much for your time and the opportunity given to all of the individuals that chose to speak and those who chose to support in presence. I wish you all a great evening.
Thank you, Mark. So we're going to be getting some data on that.
I'd like some further data on that, or some information perhaps on that. We are using the principal evaluation from the state, correct, now, on all of our principals?
Correct.
Correct. And does the RCW meet that? Does the RCW need updating, or is that accurate to that evaluation?
I'm presuming that the RCW is the most recent, but I would need to review that.
Okay, so I guess what I would like to know is how that piece, partnering with the school community to promote student learning, is included in the evaluation that we're using from the state.
You all?
Yeah, and I would like to know, maybe you're saying the same thing, how are we collecting information from the community? I think they brought up a good point about from the taxpayers also, as they are part of the community. And I think we're going through this in several areas where we're talking about the superintendent evaluation of our district, like how do we get that data? So I think that this, we're having these conversations now, so it's probably relevant to be looking at the principal evaluation as well. But I'd like to know, how do we gather that? And are we looking at people outside the principals, because it sounded, or not, but from your.
And I recall I do not recall the number of the RCW, but I do recall that community or parents are supposed to be involved in the, what do we visit the schools?
School improvement.
The school improvement plan. How are we figuring that piece? I don't, even when we visit the schools, I don't see a whole lot of how the community is involved in developing the school improvement plan.
Some information on school improvement.
It's an RTW,
Yeah.
and it calls for parent involvement, and whenever we go to the schools for our school improvement plan visits, that's not always really clear, and I've asked it for a number of years. I'd like to hear how we're reading that.
All right, next.
Sorry, the lawyer part of my brain just pinged there. Probably would be good to know what the law allows in terms of evaluations of employees. I imagine there's some restrictions around that, how that works. Makes sense.
Want to know how the RCW,
What our contractual and legal, we're allowed to have evaluate employees.
I think I understood Dawn saying that the TPEP, the teacher principal evaluation, you're not sure whether that is in sync with the RCW, is that?
Well, if the RCW is clearly saying partnering with the school community to promote student learning, and is our board policy in line with that as well? Board members and staff shall strive to develop cooperative school district family community relations and achieve mutual understanding and respect. I'm just asking, does that include what the community is asking for? The community is asking for some kind of feedback from the community directly to the supervisor, and so is that included in the TPAP? Is that a part of it? Is my question.
Maybe we could get a sample TPEP.
You have the rubric.
Looked at it yet. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? What on here?
I wanted to move to add to our agenda tonight, a discussion regarding the board retreat September 8th, because we won't be able to discuss this before the next board retreat, our agenda regarding the board retreat.
All right, we'll address that after the consent agenda, which has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I have a question on the collective bargaining agreement with the Athletics and Activities Association. So I noticed the the memorandum of understanding talking about the role of booster clubs with helping, I don't want to use the wrong terminology here, but the role of booster clubs in helping with coaching at our schools. And it was, it's nice to see how detailed it is and all, but it seems to me this is something I've never seen actually in structure. And unfortunately, booster clubs and their roles in athletics has been in the news quite a bit lately.
It has.
It has, and so I thought it'd be wonderful if you could just help me understand how this is a change from our current way of our schools have been working with getting volunteer coaches, and how you worked with the association to move it forward.
Sure, that's a good question. So the booster clubs have funded additional coaches for a number of years. We have also had an agreement with our Coaches Association that set the stipends for coaching assignments for a number of years. And the amount of the stipends often is more than the booster clubs want to fund. So we've had a lot of discussions over the years about how much they want to fund versus how much the coaching stipends cost. And we've had a lot of discussions about the boosters donating the money through the district so we can pay, their coaches are our employees and we can pay them properly and act in our appropriate role as the employer of the coach and make sure they're properly backgrounded and all that sort of stuff. So the first part of the MOU is intended to address the issue of additional booster-funded coaches in a practical way. That is, it sets a lower rate of pay and a greater flexibility in terms of the sort of coaching assignment they want to fund. So rather than saying, I want to fund an assistant football coach and it's going to cost the boosters $4,000 and something dollars, I think it's almost $5,000 now for an assistant coach. What they can do is say, I want to fund a coach, the coaching assignment that's 100 hours long to assist with the football program, say. And the rate for that is $14 an hour, and so they would donate that much money plus the mandatory benefits. So that's the first part of the MOU. The second part of the MOU is actually, it's not a suggestion that boosters do this or a mandate that they do it. It's permission. That is, the association which represents coaches is saying that if you want to give a volunteer a gift, it's permissible under WIA rules to do that. And we've got an agreement now that allows you to do that without running afoul of the collective bargaining agreement. The condition is that we want to know who the volunteers are, and what we're planning on doing is we would send them through the normal volunteer process, and we would actually put them on the personnel report, which is
My next question.
yeah. And then we would get a list of who the what and who, what honoraria and who the honoraria are going to. It may be the boosters choose not to do this at all, but it's a way of permitting them to do that and encourage volunteers without having to, as I say, run afoul of a collective bargaining agreement or donate an amount of money in the amount of a coaching stipend. It also helps the athletic directors out when they're funding extra coaches. They don't have to slice and dice things so much. There's a lot of that, especially in certain football programs where the boosters fund a lot more coaches than are currently being funded by the district. So it's really intended to bring some order and some visibility to it and some consistency to it so we can manage it better.
Across the different schools.
Across.
And so, I'm guessing I know the answer to this question, but so if a coach is therefore involved in the system, they're going to go through the background check like every volunteer, and we can put those sort of safety controls around.
Exactly. The coaches go through a nationwide criminal history check. They're fingerprinted. Volunteers go through a state criminal history check. We have all those quality assurances in place, and because we know who they are, we're keeping track of it. We can make sure coaches are paid appropriately, extra coaches are paid consistent with the agreement, and that we're keeping track of any volunteer that may be getting an honorarium.
That's like a great improvement.
Well, we think it is. It's intended to solve a long-standing problem, and we do think it's an improvement, and we'll obviously monitor it this year.
Did the WIAA set the honorarium level at $500 for the high school and $250 for the elementary?
Well, the honorarium is, limitation is $500. With the amount we set is $250 for the junior high is something we did in bargaining. Obviously, historically, there were booster clubs that were paying honoraria much larger than $500. A couple of zeros added there in my particular district. So the intent of that, the WIA rules are intended to make sure that booster clubs can reward a volunteer for a season of service to a team without making it look like they're paying a large salary to the coach.
So I did actually have a community member walk up to my doorstep with the newspaper and make me read it and asked me to ask the question fortuitously at this point in time, are we paying any tuitions to any students in our district to a private school?
No.
Are any booster clubs involved in any of the activities that have been in the newspaper recently?
assuming they're not, I have no information that they are, I couldn't categorically state that. We have no evidence that that's.
If we have no evidence, do we have any way of affirming that that kind of activity is not going on?
Well, I probably would have to ask the athletic directors about their eligibility checks they do with athletes, and they're extensive. I have no evidence to the contrary. It's never been raised as an issue here. In the absence of a smoking gun, I guess or any information that would suggest something's going on, I guess I wouldn't know how to answer your question.
It was a community member's question that was, we aren't doing this, right? And can you make sure we're not doing this? Can we make sure we're not doing this?
I think to piggyback on what you're saying, in the article that I read, correct me if I'm wrong if anyone read it differently, is that the administrators, from what I read, had asked these questions and had gotten the answer no. Is that how you guys read it? And so I think what you're trying to ask, what I'm hearing you're trying to ask, and that popped in my mind, what things do we have in place to best assure that this isn't going on? Because I think they were told, and paraphrasing, that it wasn't going on. So people like you didn't know that it was going on, you know? So did I not read that right?
No, I don't want to second guess Bellevue School District Administration or the football coach at Bellevue High. It's not my position to do that. I think we would know if we were running a private academy in Bothell and students were moving in and boosters were paying.
But we have Chrysalis. So do we have anyone from Chrysalis in Woodinville? That's a private school that was similar to this school that.
And as much as I've enjoyed that situation, this isn't really part of the consent agenda. So perhaps maybe we can bring this back in the future agenda items. It sounds like we do have some questions and concerns. I'm right there with you, but can we cycle back so that we can have it on the agenda?
It's not part of the agreement, I think is what Sandy is saying.
And
But if
I
there's a
understand
desire
that.
If there's a desire to research it though.
Yeah, it
But,
seems like there's a
that's
desire
my-
to come back.
That's my question. If we're utilizing, it seems pretty specific how we're utilizing booster money in this document.
That's the intent, is to be explicit and
And,
specific.
and that would be much better than the alternative.
That's what we thought.
So it's like a great element.
I just want to clarify for the record, we don't have Chrysalis. That's not part of our district. There is a private school.
Sure, there's private schools. I didn't mean to say that. I'm not aware that we're funneling athletes.
I said we.
So,
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion on this item?
Good job.
Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And that passes unanimously. I haven't forgotten you, Kimberly. We're going to go through the agenda. We'll get to you. Next item on the agenda is the information items, update on the diversity equity plan. And this is a staff presentation. You have a lot of the documents in the embedded in there.
So I would just again remind the board what I shared earlier today. It's the content of the document is exactly the same, but this may be different from when you reviewed it in ESB because we had the headings wrong for the three content areas of the plan: community engagement, data analysis, and professional development. So I want to acknowledge and thank Carolyn for putting this summary together. I'm supposed to be, probably turn me on up here so folks can see what we're looking at. Essentially what we've done is we have taken the components of the plan that the board adopted in June, and we've just formatted them in a different table, and then we've provided a status of our current updates and then the upcoming work we foresee around this. So we're pleased with the progress we've made in many areas of the plan over the summer months, and it's been a bit challenging to get the right people coordinated, and certainly there's lots of other things going on within the district, but I'm hoping that the document itself is reasonably self-explanatory and would certainly welcome or entertain any questions the board may have. It's our intent to update this both to the board as well as posting to our website at least quarterly, and hopefully more frequently. It will depend on how quickly things evolve and would require updates and changes to the plan. I would also point out that the other document, or one of the other documents that's in the board briefing are, as we had discussed, some of our takeaways from the investigation of the incident at Timbercrest Junior High from last year. And so we really see 4 areas and that kind of emerged from that plan sort of as more global areas that we should focus on as a school district. And one is to be much more intentional and thorough about looking into threat situations that may be specific to race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, to perhaps not view them in as isolated a manner, but to be sure that we're thoroughly vetting them to understand how comprehensive or how wide-ranging they may be. The review and the revision of our threat assessment process, and that's referenced in the other document, where we've made good headway on that over the summer and are ready to launch a new and improved process this fall. And I think the key element is that we've entered into or in finalizing a contract with the Center for Human Services, so we have a consistent place to have our threat assessments conducted. We'll conduct those at district expense, so we sort of remove the issue of perhaps families trying to scramble around to figure out where they may be able to get a threat assessment that might take their insurance, et cetera. So this will provide greater consistency and certainly facilitate a more rapid process in the future. We've finalized revisions to policy 4411P, relation with law enforcement. We've worked with both administrators and our law enforcement partners on revising this, so we have greater clarity and consistency of expectation around when we involve police. And then obviously the last component is continued training around race, civility, cultural competency, et cetera. And we've embarked on that work and have a schedule of training throughout the year for our district administrators, and certainly that's what you as the board have been involved with for the bulk of your afternoon today as well.
So can you tell me more about under major components, it says investigate and implement as appropriate technological or other tools that enable the confidential reporting of harassment, intimidation. And I remember hearing that we didn't think that we could have a confidential reporting system, so I'm wondering if you could tell me more about this.
So I think we may have been talking about a confidential reporting system that would involve complaints against staff who would in any kind of disciplinary situation, would have the right to know who was making a complaint against them and be able to respond to that complaint. We have been looking into and are in the process of implementing a program called Safe Schools Alert that was recommended to us through the risk pool, which our insurance is our insurance carrier. So they have recommended this, and this has been adopted by a number of school districts that also are members of the risk pool as well. So it allows for anonymous or non-anonymous reporting of safety concerns, school safety concerns, sort of general tips, and kudos as well. So things that might be going well. They can be submitted in one of 4 ways: voicemail, text, email, or online. We hope to be able to launch this in September. We're continuing to work on the processes and the routing of the particular notifications. When we implement something like this, what we have to make sure we have in place is an ironclad system that anybody who reports through this system doesn't somehow get lost in the mix somewhere. So we have to be sure that we have really good processes and procedures in place to make sure that a safety tip or whatever kind of tip or incident report we have gets to the appropriate person to respond to it. Robert Knowles here, our Safety Security Manager, he might have more information if you have more detailed questions than that.
I'm just curious, I just want to make sure I understand the difference between the Safe Schools Alert versus the threat assessment through the Center for Human Services, whether, are they two separate systems? Do they interact?
They're not connected at all.
They're not, so the threat assessment system is to work with, can you help me understand the difference?
So if we have a student that we have concerns may be a danger to themselves or perhaps a danger to others based on any variety of factors, one of the things we have asked for in the past is that the student receive a threat assessment from a qualified professional who can verify that they are either safe to be in the school environment or are not a danger to themselves or not a danger to others. We have generally, while we have been able to refer families to different places where they might be able to get a threat assessment, or the family could access a professional on their own, perhaps if they had somebody who was working with their particular child. That's how we've handled that. Now with the contract for the Center for Human Services, there will be one place where when we find ourselves in a situation where we need to require a threat assessment of a student, we will send them there. We will, as a district, pick up the tab for that threat assessment. We have an ongoing contract with the Center for Human Services for this work, so we'll have greater consistency and quality control around that process.
Are we doing it internally before instead of externally? Is that the case?
Yes, there is an internal process to determine whether or not an external threat assessment is.
That's where we were getting caught up, and that's why that gentleman was coming up oftentimes saying you guys need an external. The gentleman that did external threat assessments for businesses, I think it was, he was coming up and saying that we need an external. And so now we've moved towards that because the recommendation is that we do have that. Correct?
Correct. We had in the past sent students for external threat assessments, but we did not have a one-stop place where they went, where we had an ongoing contract and relationship with that for that service to be provided. So people could have gone to any one of a number of places to get an external threat assessment. And so part of our work around this has been to determine that it's better, safer, and more consistent over time if we have a contract with a provider who is willing to provide this service, capable, expert at providing this service. And if we agree to pay for it, because sometimes that issue of cost to the family has been a barrier.
So are we not using an internal person at all anymore? We're going to someone, if we, who's making that judgment? That becomes this rubric? I mean, who's making this judgment?
So the internal threat assessment process still occurs, and it may not be that every threat results in a referral to an external threat assessment. But they'll first go through that internal process, the rubric and the procedure that has been shared with the board.